Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to share with you guys how my recent Spinraza injection just went. Now, you guys will not see this video until September 10th, but at the time of this recording, it is currently September 3rd, and I had received my Spinraza injection last Wednesday. So literally 1 week exactly from the time of this recording. And while I had my Spinraza injection, for those of you that have been keeping up with my content, keeping up with who I am for these past several months, is you will know that in April, when I had received my 24th Spinraza injection, everything, you know, I was undergoing I was undergoing a lot of discomfort after my injection during the recovery process, I guess you can say. And the injection itself went mildly well, or I want to say good, in terms of the injection itself. It was something that was a little bit out of the ordinary. Is when I had woke up on the gurney, is there was a lot of blood on my sheets, and I think it's simply because the injection site that they go through is developing scar tissue. So I think it's becoming a little bit harder to penetrate the needle as they do the lumbar puncture, and which explained the blood on my gurney, and it was quite a bit. I don't want to be super dramatic, but to give you like an idea, is like for example, the eagle that is right behind me is my ego there, it's a little bit small. I would say about like three quarters of that plaque behind me, and which is quite a big spot. And it was just, a lot of blood there. Anyhow, I woke up from the injection and everything again went good in terms of the injection itself. It was just the thing that was a little bit out of the ordinary for me was seeing the blood on my sheets. Usually there's oftentimes, not all the time, but usually there's sometimes blood spots on my sheets as I'm back on the hospital gurney. But my past injection, my 24th Spinraza injection, is the recovery process. I was down for six, like 4 to 6 weeks, and by down I'm talking about almost 2 months. By down I'm talking about the pain was nearly unbearable. I was undergoing extreme pain. Sitting up was literally nearly unbearable. The position I am in right now, it was very difficult for me to sit in my wheelchair, sit in my wheelchair, elevate my bed because my bed has elevation feature, and just moving, like any sudden movements was literally nearly unbearable. It was so extreme and so intense where I had to email my doctor and explain the situation, and my doctor had put in an order for me to get a pain injection to help subside with the pain and help ease it. It was so intense where, you know, it was even hard. It even got to the point where it was like nearly hard to sleep and get some rest. And I'm not over exaggerating with that. And anyone who knows me personally knows that I experience pain a lot. It's just, part of my story, I guess, or part of my life. And I am not one to complain about pain. I could literally be in the hospital going through a lot of pain, extreme pain, and I will be completely stoic. I won't show any emotion. I won't show any face um, with any form of discomfort that I am going through. More so when it's around people outside of like my mother, for example, and even too sometimes I'll appear stoic with her as well. And but yeah, so this process, it was so intense where it was really hard for me to not show a face, to give it like an understanding of how that injection went. So fast forward to me receiving my 25th injection, my newest injection, which again I got last week, is I had brought it up to my doctor's attention. Hey, this is how my last injection went. This is what my last experience was like. What are my other options here? And up to my knowledge, I believed that there was another spot available to utilize for the Spinraza injection. However, the only reason why I never used it, up to my knowledge, to keep it short, is I thought there was another option available to administer the Spinraza injection, and it turns out that there wasn't. And I believed, at the time that there was another spot, a secondary option, but the only reason why we never used it is simply because it was more complex and it increased the risk factors of the injection itself, which is lumbar puncture. Going through your going through that area is very critical. You got to be very careful with. And anyhow, so the spot that I have been receiving my injection is my only option. And I had mentioned, again, how my past experience was with my doctor. And my doctor was like, he was like, this is your only option. He was like, because of your severe sclerosis and your bone structure, he says as it is, the option that we have now that we have available is complex. And it so happens that there's a small opening between my bones, I guess. There's a small opening, like just one small perfect opening, I guess you could say, where it gives them the access and accessibility to administer the medication for the Spinraza injection. So so during that conversation, I don't want to stop Spinraza. I said, let me see how this injection goes. Let me see how this injection goes, and then maybe we can talk about what are my other options. And fast forward is I woke up from the injection. Everything was great. There was no blood on my sheets, which was good. And that's usually how it is. It was just last injection was a different. It was just a different one of those days, I guess you could say. And so I woke up with my injection, and I had a headache, which is nothing out of the ordinary. I always wake up with a headache with after receiving Spinraza. It's one of the side effects, and two, it's the way how the medication is because they have to drain out fluid and replace that fluid with Spinraza, which causes pressure to your brain, which causes the individual or the patient to have a headache. So nothing out of the ordinary. Woke up, everything went great, everything went well. So now it was a question of, okay, let's see how I am tomorrow. Let's see how I am within these next few days. Am I going to experience the discomfort that I had my last experience? So that was the question. And yeah, everything went well. I woke up and I didn't feel sore whatsoever. I felt a little sore where they did the injection, but by sore, I'm talking about my last experience where it was like hard to move and feeling discomfort in my chair and things like that. Nothing was like that. So it was great, great news. So my neurologist had emailed me and she said that your injection went well, everything went great, but she wanted to know how I was feeling because for a second I thought I was going to have to stop taking Spinraza after I had received my neurologist email, after my neurologist had emailed me. And pretty much, this situation of receiving Spinraza is complex. It's very complicated because, again, my severe scoliosis, which makes it harder, makes it more complex. And it's a unique situation, I guess you could say. So during this email, my doctor was saying, hey, like how my doctor said, hey, your other doctor, who was the one who administered the medication, had emailed my neurologist stating, the concerns that I had and how my past experience was. And, had talked about would I be open to having a shunt? I haven't looked it up yet, whatever that is. If I would be open to considering a shunt or a pump. I don't know what those two are. And I just know that it was an option or something, some form of a solution to continue receiving Spinraza. And I had this conversation with my mom as well, and I was like, I personally, when it comes to my back, because for those of you that know me or know my story or have been keeping up with my content or keeping up with who I am, is you will know that, I had a spinal infusion done in 2010. And that was quite the experience because I shortly after I had the spinal infusion, shortly after I had got a severe infection, a really, really bad infection that caused me to need a spinal debridement, which is spinal infusion is they open up your back, put in the metal rods, and spinal debridement is where they, have to reopen up your back and take out the metal rods. So that was quite the process. It was quite the experience, and because of that, I was like, anything to do with my back, I personally don't think I am willing to roll the dice or really gamble on something like that. So I had emailed the doctor and I was like, anything with my back, I'm really not open to hearing my other options, just because that experience was quite the experience. And getting older, and your disability is getting worsen. It's it's progressive, to say the least. um I just personally don't know if I am willing to go through something like that again. I'm not saying it's going to be that extensive if I had the shunt or the pump, because again, I don't know what it is. I haven't looked it up yet. But I just personally don't think I am willing to endure that kind of process. If it's much of an option, much of a choice. And anyhow, so during this conversation, is fortunately, to close out this video, is my recent Spinraza injection, which again was last week. Everything went well, everything went great. Headaches, but that's expected for several days to like the first week. Sometimes it'll lead into like 2 weeks, and then flicker it'll flicker on and off for the remaining upcoming several weeks. But usually the first week is just the toughest. And but yeah, this injection's been really well. Little headaches here and there, but nothing unbearable, nothing out of the ordinary, which is a blessing within itself. And the discomfortness, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing, nothing out of the ordinary. Everything's going really well. Everything's a blessing in that aspect. And to really quickly touch on the topic, is I emailed my doctor and I was like, I was like, this injection went really well. I updated my neurologist about how this injection went, how I'm currently feeling. My neurologist was very pleased and happy to hear the good news about how I was currently feeling. And they says, and after when I received the first email, I was like, am I going to have to stop taking Spinraza, just because of how the email went? And after the after I had responded and I was like, can you clarify like what it is? Like, do can you clarify, with this injection, was there something that changed between April to was there anything that changed between April's injection to September to August's injection, where it made it more complex, where they were just able to do this last one, and where they were able to do this Spinraza injection, and they were like, this is his last one, you know. And I was like, can you clarify, because the email wasn't quite clear. And I can actually read you the email so you actually know what I'm talking about. And let's do that. Take like a second. And then, but yeah, so it was quite the process. And we'll close out the video right here. I just want to document as much as possible. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is it. This is my email. So I received my email on the day of my injection, which is August 28th. So it says, Victor, Dr. So and so has communicated with me about there is more difficulty to do the spinal injection due to your backbone structure. Your doctor asked if we can consult neural surgery to put a permanent shunt or pump. Will you be considering this approach? Or do you want to try the oral risdiplam? And risdiplam is another form of treatment for SMA, but it's orally, and you take that daily. If you want to learn more about SMA, look up at the SMA Victor on Instagram or YouTube as well. I have a YouTube channel dedicated specifically spreading SMA awareness, and where I have an entire production team that helps me create content. And anyhow, so I replied with, "Hi, Dr. So and so. My doctor, Dr. So and so, explained to me briefly about alternative options, doing something to that extent. I don't personally think I would consider anything to do with slash near my spine. I am very cautious about, as of course all of you are too. And I read that completely wrong. Hi, Dr. So and so. Dr. So and so explained to me briefly about alternative options, doing something to that extent I do not personally think I would consider. Anything to do with slash near my spine, I am very cautious about. And then I put in parentheses, as of course all of you are too. This injection had went phenomenally well. I have my usual headaches, but nothing out of the ordinary for me. In comparison to my recent previous injections, I didn't wake up feeling sore or in much of any pain with this injection, which is great. Due to the complexity behind my injections, can I still receive Spinraza? Because that was like the main question I had. And my doctor said, Victor, I am so glad to hear this injection went well. We can continue Spinraza. We will rediscuss it with Dr. So and so if they have noted any more difficulties slash issues to continue the procedure later on. So I was really, really glad to hear that because again, with the first email, I was like, am I going to have to stop taking Spinraza? Which was a really big question. And there are, fortunately now there has been a lot more medical treatment breakthroughs in for Spinraza, and um, and I just I've seen the benefits of taking Spinraza, so I really don't know because I even thought about it before before I was going through any discomfort or any discomfort with taking Spinraza. I considered it before about taking the oral medication, and um, and up to my knowledge, I know it is rare that you can combine the therapies and consult with your doctor first, in terms of that. But this is just my experience, my own opinion. And up to my knowledge, it is very rare that you can take Spinraza along with Ridizeplam, which is the oral medication, and you can combine the therapies together, which again is rare, but you have to consult with your doctor and or your medical team to talk about that, get more knowledge on that. But you know, I've seen the benefits, because again, I considered switching, and after a deep thought and deep meditation, I, found myself comfortable taking Spinraza. Although, yes, there are a lot of risk factors involved, especially with my SMA, with my respiratory, with my breathing. It's not the greatest, it's not the strongest, especially under sedation. It makes you more um, receptive to, um, makes it harder when it comes to the respiratory, when it comes to the breathing aspect. And, eventually found myself coming to the conclusion that I reflected off of how I was feeling and I reflected off of the benefits I have gained from it. And it's just not something I was willing to stop and completely take a hold on and try something different, and if it didn't work out, then switch back. It was not something I was willing to roll the dice on because again, it came down to the question of, okay, if I have seen the progress, of taking Spinraza and I've seen the benefits behind it, I can, if I happen to stop taking Spinraza and I say moved over to Ridizeplam, which is the oral medication, what if Ridizeplam doesn't work? Now that's a big what if, and there's also the alternative thought with what if it really does work and it works out even better than Spinraza? Of course there's that thought as well. And I had asked myself, I was like, okay, is it really you've seen the benefits taking Spinraza? Is it really worth something you are willing to consider where let's say worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. You stop taking Spinraza, you take Ridizeplam, it doesn't work out. And during the process of you experimenting, say 1 to 3 months, however long that process goes, one, how is my body going to adjust with the medication? Because there's certain how is my body going to adjust to taking that medication? How am I going to handle it? How am I going to take it? And how is my body going to react to it, is what I meant to say. And let's say if it doesn't work out, now within those 1 to 3 months, let's say, right? What if I get worse? Now I switch back over to Spinraza, and I don't even know how that process is going to be. But, let's say if I did switch over back to Spinraza, then it became a thought of, am I going to be worse than I was prior to me stopping? And, for me, the answer was pretty simple. Keep taking Spinraza. Yes, there's more risk factors involved, but to me, I've seen the benefits, and I think the benefits outweigh. I think the pros outweigh the cons, in terms of the medication, in terms of the whole process that it takes to get these injections. But I wanted to update you guys about how my Spinraza injection went. This is a very, very long video. I personally didn't think I was going to go on like this. I was thinking more or less like 5 minutes or so, and that was not the case. But great, great topic, great conversation, and it's something again I wanted to document, share, and also I think it's pretty good to kind of update my life and how my injections are going, both for the caregivers and both for other individuals with SMA, or for anyone curious about individuals who receive Spinraza. I think it's beneficial for them as well. But yeah, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And if you are new to who I am, like the video, subscribe if you are new. If you have no idea who I am, you can simply Google me, Victor the Inspiration, and you'll see so much there is to know about me. And yeah, and I look forward to creating more content. If you have any video ideas, let me know. Drop them down within the comments below. Again, like, subscribe, and I love you. I appreciate you. And remember, grow through what you go through. Much love.